Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. This week we are crushing the awkward with our guest Mike O'Connor from Service Professionals Network. Mike, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm doing great, Andy. I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on your podcast today. This is actually one of my first podcasts that I've actually been on. I've been shy about being on them for several different reasons. So, when you asked me, I had to break that and I had to come onto your podcast and be a little bit different.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I'm honored to have you on and honored to be someone who's breaking habits for you. That feels great. So in a couple minutes, go ahead.
Well, I figured, you're used to making things awkward, and I've been watching your podcast and some of your stand-up routine, which I think is absolutely freaking hysterical. I love it. I also like a lot of your boldness and the things that you do and the way you put yourself out there. So really, it's a testament to you to why I came onto this show, because I felt comfortable being awkward with you.
Hey, well, thanks. You know, I'm all about awkward, so I'm glad that making people more comfortable instead of less comfortable, because it's not something everybody grasps very easily.
No, and that's actually the whole point of what I try to do with the Service Professionals Network is make things less awkward and more comfortable for people. Because let's face it, most people that do marketing nowadays, or most people that are online trying to promote themselves, whether they're trying to look for a job, trying to promote their business, or raise money for a nonprofit, they have to go through the awkward feeling of how do I get people to look at me without making it seem like it's all about me and I'm the center of attention. There's a fine line between promoting yourself and coming off as a cocky bastard, and a lot of people use that as a fear or a reason not to go out there and put themselves out there because they're afraid of the awkward. So my goal with SPN, the Service Professionals Network website, and the groups in general is just to bring like-minded people that work together, follow the golden rule, have the pay-it-forward mentality, and believe in win-win marketing and win-win networking. The people that shy away from the "what's in it for me" crowd, and that's really, to be frank, that's why I'm on this show. It's a win-win for me, it's a win-win for SPN, and that's part of practicing what you preach, I suppose.
Yeah, and so Mike, folks, in a minute we're gonna put Mike on the spot about what has been his awkwardness in life. But before we get to that, when you talked a little bit about goals of SPN and which is Service Professionals Network for people who aren't keeping up really quick. SPN is a group that Mike runs, a networking group on several different social media platforms. Can you explain kind of a little bit about what SPN is? You've talked about kind of their goals and what you're trying to do with it, but how do people get involved with it? Where does it come from?
Sure. Actually, if you go to the serviceprofessionalsnetwork.com, they'll give you a lot of information in regards to the groups that we have, the social media groups. We have social media groups on LinkedIn, and we also have a social media group on Facebook. They're both growing every day. Basically, the groups are designed to make networking online easier and to help make it possible for people to network with business leaders and influencers. Basically, it's another spot to introduce yourself to a whole different audience. The reason why we actually got SPN started, it was by request many years ago. Somebody asked me to, form a networking project or a group because I have a rather large audience on LinkedIn, and not only is my LinkedIn network, fairly large. It's not the biggest, amount of followers, but it's pretty engaged. I have a personality that's not for everybody, but the people that like me really like me. So I have a loyal network, of about 37,000 followers. I'm definitely not one of those guys with 1 million followers that, put out nothing but sunshine, puppies, and rainbows. I tell people what I think. Not only that, but I encourage debate, and I like people to come at me with their own perspectives and their thoughts. And I think that, with SBN, our groups, we want to focus on the golden rule, and we want to focus on promoting people and promoting a different way of thinking. A lot of the problems that are going on in this world today are byproducts of environment, history, and miscommunication. My goal with the Service Professionals Network is to show people that you can disagree without being disagreeable. That you can always find a way to be a little bit more tactful. And quite honestly, it's something that I'm working on myself personally. I'm not always the most tactful person, but part of what I like about SBN is it holds me accountable because there are so many thousands of people in this group that do look to me. I don't know why, but they look to me for an example. So these people are amazing. I mean, we have people that go around the world just spending money out of their own pockets left and right to help people. We have other people that are, fighting the sex slave trades. We have people that are raising money for veterans causes. I mean, we have some people doing some serious stuff. And the fact that people look at me as a leader is just amazing. And I'm humbled and privileged every day of my life. And quite honestly, the Service Professionals Network isn't just about, marketing shit for me online. I really do like this group, and I really like the people that are in it because of the pay it forward attitude and the golden rule philosophy. Every day of my life, I have different members of SBN come to me and show me something that's amazing and shows me the things that they're doing to make the world around them a better place. Really, SBN, with all the negative shit that's out there online, especially on Facebook and LinkedIn, it's a dog-eat-dog world. People are always out for themselves. They're always out for number one. And to have a group where thousands of people are actually pushing a different agenda and they're fighting against that just makes me the most proud person in the world. And, I don't go around preaching a lot, but, I do believe in Christ. I'm a Christian. I don't like to talk about religion or politics or anything like that too much. But you got me to break my rule, and this is live, so here I go. One of the things about that is that pride is one of those things that you're not supposed to have. They consider it a sin. So I try to be as humble as possible. But at the same time, when I have so many amazing people network with me, and tell me the things that they do, it's hard not to have somewhat of an inflated ego. And sometimes that shines through. And I appreciate people like you, Andy, that help me, get past the awkward feelings and make me comfortable enough to come out and talk and to continue to do what I do. And I, as you know, have been working on my website diligently the last few weeks. That's why my social media engagement's down. I got a lot of cool stuff figured out on my site. So I'm really excited that I can start focusing more on the connecting stuff, the social networking, the raising money for non-for-profits. I got a few people like Jake Shanks and Hiram Figueroa and Stuart Ashby that are raising money for veterans and good causes. And we have other people out there like Mary Beth Cronin that are raising money for fighting the elderly abuse. I mean, we have some good causes that I really want to write about, and I want to write some compelling stories about. Scott Lester with GW Distillery, what he's doing, he's making some money selling the CBD oil, but he's doing it for a cause that I think is just amazing. I think you should check out his website when you have an opportunity. It's linked onto my website. He is one of my advertisers, but I just love the guy. Anyway, sorry to rant. Join the social media groups on SBN. Engage with us. That's the best way to get my attention, to get the attention of other influencers that are in the group. I mean, there are some people in SBN that have, millions of followers, and they actually network with me. They actually take my phone calls. I don't know why, but they do. And part of what we do in SBN is we show you how to make those connections. We show you how to network with them. And, maybe we'll do another podcast down the road where we actually talk about how to do that.
Yeah, that would be great. A couple things you hit on there. One is I think we get so caught up in social media, we get so caught up on the technology aspect of it. But with SPN, what my experience has been, it grounds you back to the fact that this is all people we're dealing with, and real people with real struggles and real goals and things that they're putting out in the world. And it's a good reminder that at the end of the day, we're interacting with people throughout the world, and it's all about the people that are involved and not the technology and the likes and the tweets and the shares.
Yeah, it's all about, like Simon Chan says, Team Human. I love the fact that hashtag has caught on the way that it has, because I find myself doing it all the time too. And like you said, the word that you brought up there that I absolutely freaking love is the word grounded. Being somebody that fights through anxiety and bipolar and all those different things that I deal with on a daily basis, part of the reason why I don't do podcasts, and you can probably tell by my long-winded rants there, is I have a restless brain. It never stops. It's always moving. I always have something I want to say. I mean, as I'm speaking now, I'm trying to hold off 800 different topics, right? So,
right.
when you talk about technology and how it applies, it's easy to get away from the human aspect, and the grounding that comes through the group and the engagement is just unbelievable. Being able to center yourself by putting things out there and getting honest feedback with people is just amazing. So many people online, you see it all the time. They put out crap and they join these marketing pods, and every comment is, "Oh, this is amazing. This is great. I love this." It's all fluff. The difference with Service Professionals Network, I think, is that we teach real engagement. That we teach that it's okay to discern information before you give feedback. It's okay not to agree 100% of the time. A lot of people that come to my profile, especially on LinkedIn, really think it's not okay to disagree on something. And I challenge that philosophy every day of my life. At least I try to. I don't like the posts that are just like, the ones I'm talking about, the ones that just are designed to get 200,000 likes, made by the life coach that has the marketing pod, where it's like, you are beautiful, ... space, mess included, or with all your flaws included, I mean, you see the same regurgitated post over and over and over and over again, right? And I like to do the posts that don't necessarily get millions of likes, but generate lots of thought. And I encourage that. I encourage it in that type of post in the Service Professionals Network groups. And really, even on Facebook is where I really like where the group is heading the most. Not that I don't like the content in the LinkedIn group, but people are so real on Facebook. It's amazing when they drop that professional persona. And one of the things I like about the differences in the two groups is that you get to see different sides of the personalities involved. And one of the things I have to actually warn people that are in SPN or in social media in general, or even online anywhere, right, is you have to be careful at all times. If you are the guy who is like the Wizard of Oz, and you're standing behind that curtain, if you're wearing a mask, or if you're one of those people who is constantly talking about authenticity, but you're putting up a front, be careful, man. Be careful about what you put out there. Even like a lot of people, they'll put shit on Slack. I don't know if you're familiar with Slack, but it's a messaging group, like a posting board, right? And a lot of people or they assume that it's private messaging only, because you can, mark some of those boards to private.
Right, but everybody can
still
see it.
hack in and see it. My point is this, right? When you put things into writing, or you say things like podcasts, for example, online, it doesn't go away, so
exactly.
It's always there, and people see it.
You can delete whatever you want. People still have those screenshots.
And it takes a second, man. It takes 1 second. So what you post in my Facebook group, right, if it's totally different than the personality you have on the LinkedIn group, be mindful of that, and take that lesson, to all your groups. Take that lesson to everything you do or say online, because words are powerful. The things that we put out into the world affect people more so than everyone knows. And it's one of the cool things about what this little podcast is going to get down to is those awkward moments, right? Well, there's awkward moments, there's love moments, there's moments filled with hate, right? All these moments are things that you can never take back, Once something happens, it's there. It's part of history. It affects us, whether we think it's so or not. Even the stuff that we tend to forget on a conscious level, it's there subconsciously. Just the way that
Right.
the human brain is wired. Like when you touch a stove when you're a kid, right, and it burns you, and you start thinking, hot stove, right? How many of us can actually remember the first time we grabbed something that was hot? We don't. You know what I mean? You can't remember the first time you burned yourself, but you remember the hot stove. You get my point? It's because
Totally.
we're wired and we are streamlined to remember danger and to respond to different things. That's why you see nothing but negativity on the news. Is because the people that are on the news they sell advertisement, right? And that's why they focus on negativity because people are going to respond to that like moths to a flame.
Oh, exactly.
So when
it's interesting.
I was
just going to say
to summarize what my point
Sorry.
is. It's my fault because I'm blabbering. My point, right, is just be careful with what you put in print or what you say out to people. If people tend to stop and think a little bit more before they speak or before they hit post on things, they'll realize that there will be many times that they don't hit post or actually say what they say because words are like arrows. They can do damage, so be careful before you let them fly, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like to think that when you have those groups like that, like SPN, it is great to see the engagement on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And I like to think of LinkedIn is more like you're sitting around that business lunch, getting to know people with very strict boundaries on what the protocol is. But when you're on Facebook, you're catching people in their living room, and it's that closer group that you invited back for drinks afterwards. That people are more relaxed, but you do have to be careful that you aren't putting your boundaries up so high in one world that you're creating two different personas, because it is all out there and people are going to be like, hey, who is this guy? What do you really mean and what do you really care about if you're completely different in one respect than you are in another?
Well, it's the game that we all say, like the old Japanese proverb about having three faces. It's one I think about quite often. Are you familiar with it?
Not completely.
Basically, the Japanese, for the audience at home, say that everyone has three faces. They have the public persona, the public face that everybody sees, right? And then you have the friend face that only your friends and your loved ones see, right? And then you have your true face, which is only the one that you see, and that's your truest self, your truest identity, right? And throughout history, there's probably never been a person in the world, except for maybe Jesus. And that's debatable depending on what you believe, right? Or, Muhammad, depending on what you believe, that only had one face. My goal, and a lot of people think I'm completely batshit crazy and out of my mind stupid with the way I do things, is because I try as much as possible to eliminate two of those three faces. And the messed up thing, the thing that's really fucked up, is that I'm not exactly sure about that other face, my true self face. I know we're all trying to figure ourselves out. And in a lot of ways, I'm very strict in my character and my habits and the things that I do, right? But, I'm also up and down, probably more so than most people, because I do fight mania, I do fight depression, and I fight a lot of things that are just chemically, that's the way that I'm wired. I try to find my consistent self, and the more that I try to identify that, the more I try to eliminate the public self and even my friend self. And the reason why I try to do that is because there's a piece that comes with just being who you are. I mean, fuck the marketing side of things. Where everyone's like, oh, be yourself, and people like you. You find your tribe, and you build your. Those are all great things, right? But that's not really my motivation, because if you're looking to be yourself to attract others, are you really looking to be yourself?
Right. Yeah, because you're selling out at some level if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, but.
Yeah, so I feel like you've kind of touched on it quite a bit already, but I like to put everybody on the spot and say, what is that awkward thing you've had to get over? And it doesn't have to be one thing, but what is something that you've had to do? And I feel like you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but is there something that you feel has been something you were self-conscious about, or a hurdle that you had to get past in order to be at this level that you're at today, where you're networking with all these people and a leader amongst a whole group?
Well, this is, first of all, just to let the audience know, is this is something that hasn't been planned for a long period of time. You actually asked me earlier today or yesterday, I believe, to be on your podcast. I think you asked me to be on it yesterday, and then I wound up being on it today just because I was kind of busy and blew you off, right? I have probably millions and millions of awkward moments, probably because I'm a little bit more out there and crazy than most people. I never shut up. I had the nickname The Mouth, Turbo, Chuckles, Heed. I mean, I've had more nicknames referring to how much I talk, including the Big O, which is still a running joke. It's my favorite nickname of all time. I actually used it for my fighting name in my MMA days, the Big O, because I have one of those really outgoing personalities, right? And I developed the Big O persona as a shield for the most part, because believe it or not, I had a severe speech impediment. I stutter, and I still do to this day if I get emotionally triggered. And when I do get triggered, it can still take me several minutes to fix myself. It almost went right there. It just happens.
Sure.
I actually had what you call a fat tongue, so I had to have surgery to reduce the little piece of skin that connects your tongue to the bottom of your mouth. Right, and I had mind racing and all these different things. One thing most people don't know is I also have an overactive glands, so I snot and I drool all the time. If I don't constantly swallow my saliva, I will choke. And these things that I've been dealing with have led to an abundance of awkward moments, right? But I wanted to talk about something a little bit different. I wanted to talk about awkward moments that I've had, right? One of which is I was a kid, and I actually peed myself a little bit in my third grade class, right? And the reason why I peed myself, I'll go over in a second, really sucked. But the awkward moment was when I was sitting there in class. The teacher came over and said, "What did you do?" And I said, I don't know how to say this. I got to go to the bathroom. I peed myself, which is terrible for a third grader, surrounded by a classroom of third graders. It was very, very awkward to say the least, right? But what made it more awkward is the teacher kind of shamed me and put me on the spot. I said, "Why would you do that? Are you not a big boy? Why wouldn't you tell me that?" And I said, I don't know. And the reason, and what's messed up, right, is I've always considered myself a fairly intelligent person. There's no way I can say that without sounding cocky, right? But even as a young kid, I always thought of myself as somebody who could see the big picture, right? In this particular moment, I knew what I wanted to say to the teacher, but I didn't have a way of saying it because I didn't want to rat anybody in my family out, and I didn't want to draw more attention to myself. At the time, and still to this day, I wish the teacher just kind of had a little bit more empathy and compassion. But this was a big learning lesson for me because I wound up peeing myself due to what my older brother had called a frogger. Do you know what a frogger is? It's when somebody drives their heel into your butt hard enough to make you hop around the house like a frog. Well, my brother liked to get froggers a lot, and this particular day, he had got me a few times. So I don't know if you've ever been punched or kicked or beaten really hard in the kidneys, but it's hard to maintain how much you pee when it's really bad. Wow. So here I was, an abused kid, and that, if you had taken up my shirt, my whole back was black and blue, right?
Oh, my God.
And this teacher just sees a kid that's peed himself a little bit, drew attention to it. The whole room laughed at me. Whole room full of kids, some of which I'm still friends with today. And what's even more awkward is I had just moved to town from Kansas. So I was a kid that was fat. I had a speech impediment, a Kansas accent, growing up in Chicago now, right? And I was badly beaten, and I just peed myself, and on my second day in a new school.
Wow.
Right? So, I didn't make a lot of friends that day, and, it was kind of an awkward summer because it was like 2 weeks left to go in the school year, and my mom actually wound up hitting one of the teachers over something that was said. Long story short, it was a fun introduction into the local school system and the local community, right? And one of the things that it most taught me is that you never know what's beneath the shirt. You know what I mean? And when somebody does something, anything, whether they're peeing their pants or saying something stupid, reacting in anger, trying to rip somebody off, they're doing so for a reason. And things like this always made an indelible impact on me, right? And it always made me aware of finding the why before I speak. Before you criticize, find the why.
Yeah.
And a lot of people nowadays, they're talking about, find your why, right? I look at it as like, I know my why, right? My problem is I need to know your fucking why.
Yeah, that is an amazing lesson, and to learn that at such an early age, and I don't know at what point you learned the lesson, but to carry that with you and at some point realize there's more to the story than what you see in front of you, that is awesome.
Well, unfortunately, that wasn't my first such experience. It was just the one that stuck out in my head today. I grew up, and I don't want to, make my mom feel bad or, make my family. I grew up in an abusive household. My dad was an alcoholic until my 16th birthday. He pretty much, not my 16th birthday, but my 16th year on this planet. It's pretty much when my dad quit drinking. He quit drinking after he damn near beat me half to death with a barbecue lid that just came off the barbecue. I woke up in the hospital with second and third degree burns because I'd fallen into the charcoal and knocked over the grill, landed in the embers. And that didn't stop the beating. It really didn't. And I woke up in the hospital, and I told the police that were there, and I told the doctor that was there that I fell. And I looked at my dad, and I could see it in his face. He was sober. And I told him that's the last time that I'm going to tell anybody I fell. And he got teary-eyed. And he was emotionally unavailable. He didn't know what to do. So he left. And we didn't talk on that subject for years. But, I never really saw my dad drunk after that. I mean, it was 6 years, over 6 years before I saw him have another drink. And by the time he had that drink, he was dying. And he was going through the throes of depression. See, I don't tell people a lot of this, right? But I grew up in a house where a man literally ate himself to death. He laid on the bed for the last 20 or 30 years of his life. And he got depressed. And when he got pneumonia, he was so big, the paramedics that showed up, here, weren't able to get him out of the house without killing him. But it was a wild thing because I watched somebody battle depression and I watched somebody battle mania. And my dad, make no mistake about it, was probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. And something that motivates me every day in my life is I don't want to be like him, but I aspire to be like him. You know what I mean? Because he conquered a lot of his demons, right? He faced this shit. And I'm going to eventually write a book about breaking the cycles and the chains that bind us, right? And I'm going to dedicate it to my dad. And I'm getting a little bit teary-eyed thinking about this, but I'm going to dedicate it to my dad because I'm extremely proud of him. Because that man used to dig graves when he was a kid. Imagine if you're 8, 9 years old, right? And you have to go out in the dark, and you have to dig a 6-foot hole to put money on the table so all your brothers and siblings can eat. Imagine going home and getting beat with a coal shovel because you're too tired from digging the grave to heat the house. My dad went through more horrendous shit than I could ever imagine, right? And and just he never talked about it. I actually heard it from his siblings. I heard it from other people because I always asked lots of questions. My dad never talked about it. But
wow, that is, we're getting out of the last few seconds here, so.
Well, my goal is to learn what take what I've learned through these awkward and painful moments and make it less awkward and painful for others. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do on a day-to-day basis with my group. And I really appreciate you bringing me on to your show and podcast and giving me the opportunity to speak about some of this stuff.
Yeah, it is amazing, Mike, and I hate to cut you off in the middle of such a deep and endearing story.
Sure.
You've got so much to share, and I think it's amazing that you can see the good and the spirit and what your father has gone through, and it comes right back to that message about knowing what's under the shirt. So I really appreciate it. I'm so glad to have you on, Mike. Links to all of Mike's information will be in the description, and so thank you very much, Mike. Thanks so much, and have a great day.
I appreciate it. You have a great day too, buddy. Win-win.
Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.